Hey guys, welcome back to more Entitled People stories. In this video, OP built a house in the wilderness for 8 years by himself, and a new HOA then moves in and demands that he follows their rules despite not being a homeowner association member. Let's dive right into the video. 8 years ago, I left behind the chaos of city life and decided to live off the grid. I sold my belongings, bought a piece of untouched wilderness, and spent years building a modest house with my own hands. The land was a mix of dense woods and open meadows with a stream flowing right through the middle. My days were filled with chopping wood, hunting, fishing, gardening, which was hard work, but it was also the most fulfilling way of living I could imagine. For all these years I was the only one in the area, the closest neighbor was miles away, and we had an unspoken agreement to keep to ourselves. That all changed when recently a developer bought up land near mine and built a suburban development called Wilderness Estates. A new homeowner association HOA was formed for the neighborhood, and suddenly they decided that my property, which was not part of their development or agreement, should fall under their jurisdiction. One day while I was out chopping firewood, I noticed a shiny brand new SUV making its way up my dirt road. A man in his 50s stepped out wearing an immaculate suit that looked out of place against the backdrop of the wild. He marched up to me without so much as a greeting. "Are you the owner of this property?" he barked. Yeah, I am. Who are you?" I replied, already feeling uneasy about the situation. "I'm Greg, the president of the Wilderness Estates HOA. We've been trying to contact you regarding several violations on your property," he said, looking down at me like I was some sort of pest. "Violations? I'm not part of any HOA," I stated firmly, wiping the sweat from my forehead. "That's not how it works," he snapped. "You live adjacent to our community, and that means you must comply with our regulations. And let me tell you, you're in violation of quite a few." He pulled out a clipboard and started rattling off a list. "Your house is not painted according to our community color scheme. Your lawn is overgrown and your fence is not approved. There's no paved driveway, and don't get me started on that unsightly chicken coop." I could hardly believe my ears. "Look, I'm not part of your HOA. This is my land and I've lived here long before your little community ever existed. So you can take your rules and get off my property." Greg's eyes narrowed and he stepped closer. "We're giving you a notice to comply or else we'll take action. You've got 30 days to make these changes or you'll face fines and penalties." I glared at him and said, "Get off my land, now." "Fine, have it your way," he sneered before turning around and storming back to his SUV. "You will regret this." Over the next few weeks, things escalated. I started getting official-looking letters in the mail from the HOA. They contained demands and threats of fines for not adhering to their so-called community standards. I ignored every single one, but it was clear that they were not gonna let this go. A week later, I was out back checking on my chickens when I heard voices coming from the front of my house. I walked around to find a group of 4 men, including Greg, unloading construction materials from a truck parked on my property. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I shouted. Greg turned around with a smirk on his face, saying, "We are here to bring your property up to code. Consider it a favor." "Get out now, or I'm calling the police," I said, my fists clenching at my sides. Greg stepped closer, lowering his voice to a menacing whisper. "You don't seem to get it. We are the authority here. You're either with us or against us, and trust me, you don't want to be against us." Another man who I recognized from some of the HOA letters chimed in. "If you refuse to comply, we will have no choice but to seize your property and evict you." I could not believe what I was hearing. "You have no legal right to take my property," I yelled back, feeling the heat rise in my face. Greg crossed his arms and smirked. "We'll see about that." In the days that followed, the harassment ramped up. I would wake up to find notices of violation signs staked into my front yard, warning of fines if I didn't comply. HOA members began patrolling my land, taking pictures, and even trying to sneak into my house when they thought I was not home. Then came the threat of violence. One morning, I found a note taped to my door. "You think you're above the rules? Well, we'll show you what happens when you defy the HOA. Next time it won't just be letters." That was the last straw for me. I went to the sheriff's office with a note and a stack of HOA letters I had received. The sheriff, an old-timer who had known me for years, listened as I explained the situation. "Look, these HOA types can be really pushy, but they don't have any authority over your land unless you've signed a contract," the sheriff said, flipping through the paperwork. "Well, I never signed anything," I confirmed. "Then they are trespassing and harassing you. I will pay them a visit, but you might want to consult a lawyer just in case," he advised. I took his advice and contacted a lawyer specializing in property law. She was shocked by what I told her and immediately took on my case. She instructed me to document everything, the harassment, the trespassing, the threats, and a few days later I received a letter from the lawyer representing the HOA. It was a cease and desist notice demanding that I stop harassing the HOA members. I showed it to my lawyer, who just laughed. "This is amateur hour. They don't have a leg to stand on," she said. "We will send them a counter notice demanding that they stay off your property and cease their threats immediately. And also we're gonna file for a restraining order to keep them away." As my lawyer prepared the paperwork, I beefed up security around my house. I installed motion sensor cameras, reinforced my fences, and put up more no trespassing signs. I was not gonna let these people intimidate me into submission. When the restraining order was served to the HOA, they didn't take it well. Greg and his cronies showed up on my property again, this time banging on my door shouting threats. I had already called the sheriff, who arrived just as Greg was starting to get violent. They said, "You're under arrest for trespassing and making criminal threats," the sheriff said as he cuffed Greg and his accomplices. "I'm the HOA president. I have rights." Greg screamed as he was shoved into the back of the sheriff's car. "Well, not on private property you don't," the sheriff replied coldly. With Greg and his buddies taken care of, my lawyer went on the offensive. She actually filed a lawsuit for me against the HOA for harassment, trespassing, and threats of violence. During the court proceedings, the judge was not amused by the HOA's behavior. They tried to argue that they were enforcing community standards, but the judge quickly shut them down. "You have no jurisdiction over private property not bound by your association," the judge said sternly. "Your actions were not only illegal, but a blatant abuse of power." The court ruled in my favor, ordering the HOA to cease all harassment, stay off my property, and pay me damages for the emotional distress and property violations they had caused. Greg was charged with trespassing and making criminal threats, which landed him a hefty fine and probation. With the HOA put in their place, life slowly returned to normal. I reinforced the boundaries of my land with new fencing and put up even more cameras to ensure my privacy was respected. The HOA members never dared to bother me again, especially after they had to pay up for their misguided attempts to control my life. Now, some of my friends have told me that I might have gone too far by involving the sheriff and taking things to court. They argued that maybe I could have found a middle ground with the HOA, or at least talked it out before escalating things. But honestly, after everything they put me through, I couldn't just roll over and let them win. I had to stand up for myself, right? So now I'm left wondering, am I the a-hole for dealing with the HOA in this way? Should I have tried harder to find a peaceful resolution? And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know whether you think OP was actually in the wrong here and might have been the a-hole or not. I'm very curious about what you have to say. A user in the comments said, "Not the a-hole, you literally gave them multiple chances to back off before you involved the sheriff. They were the ones trespassing and making threats. What were you supposed to do? Just hand over your land because they didn't like the way you lived? Standing up for your rights is not being an a-hole. It's called self-respect." Another person said, "As someone in the legal profession, I can confirm that the HOA had absolutely no right to harass you like that. Your lawyer did the right thing by countering their attempts to intimidate you. You have every right to live on your land as you see fit." Not the a-hole, not even close. Another person said, "HOAs are notorious for overstepping their boundaries. I'm in one myself, and trust me, they can be tyrannical. You're not the a-hole for defending your home. They pushed and you pushed back. That's just how it works. You did good." Another person said, "Not the a-hole, your property, your rules, it's that simple. The fact that they showed up on your land threatening you says everything about their character. You had every right to involve the sheriff and a lawyer. Glad to see you came out on top." And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. "We are the owners of a theme park outside of a city in North India and had planned to visit it that weekend mostly because of two reasons. One, I wanted to check how it was being operated. It had been a while since I had been there physically, ensuring my manager with the responsibility of looking over all the employees and smooth functioning of the park. Number two, exam season had ended for my children and they were looking forward to the rides, the food and the overall experience. However, what should have been a happy day turned into a nightmare. Note, I have translated this conversation from Hindi, so some things might sound weird in English, but please bear with me. As we approached the entrance of the park, my children were already excited at seeing the Ferris wheel. However, the security guard stopped us. "Security guard, where are you from?" As he asked me this, his tone was clearly hostile. I hesitated for a moment, unsure of why it mattered, but I answered truthfully because I wanted to see just what he will do with the information. We migrated to India from Pakistan. In reality though, I'm a formerly persecuted Indian from Pakistan and migrated to India. However, it's always a mouthful to say, so I leave that part out. Not that it matters anyway, people usually see my massive beard and make quick judgments of their own, just how this security guard did. I could already see that my manager was not doing a good job of hiring the right people. The security guard's expression turned to one of disgust, and sadly, I was not even surprised. Security guard, then go back to where you came from. We don't allow Pakistanis here. He sneered at us as if we were some kind of stray dogs trying to pass the fence. I was surprised at how blunt he was in his racist remarks, not even trying to hide the fact that he found me and my family repulsive. Me? I don't see any kind of sign here that says that Pakistanis are not allowed. Besides, me and my family have lived in India for years already. We are as Indian as we are Pakistanis. Security guard, don't preach me, old man. In Hindi there are multiple ways to say this, and the way he did was derogatory. Take your haram and get out. There's a long line behind you. Me? I don't understand why you're being so rude. What's wrong with me and my family wanting to go inside? The security guard then huffed, pointing at my beard and general appearance with a dismissive wave of his hand. Security guard, what's wrong? Well, everything. Now don't waste my time and scram. We don't want people like you here looking like beggars and sounding like one too. I could not believe what I was hearing. I had lived in India for years and had never experienced such overt discrimination. My family and I had done nothing wrong, and yet this security guard was denying us entry simply because of where we came from. I had built this park from the ground up when I first came to India, hoping to give everyone a joyful time despite the difference in their appearance and culture. However, now not only was I, the owner, being denied entry, I could not imagine how many people like me had been denied like this. Me? Listen, it's not like we are not gonna pay or anything. Just let us in, please, and stop wasting both of our times. And that was when the security guard turned towards us fully, his dismissive attitude quickly turning aggressive. Security guard, you terrorists think you can come in my country and argue with me, huh? Now F off before I bash your skull open. As the security guard continued to throw threats, I quickly realized that there was no way I was getting through his racist mindset. So I instead tried to go towards the security block. It is a small building where the rest of the security staff and the manager sits. However, the guard suddenly stood in my way and pushed me back. When my wife ran towards me to help me and pry the guard's hands off, this racist prick spat at her. My wife was taken aback and she was in tears at such an action. My kids were looking at us with confusion and fear in their eyes. I felt my blood boil with anger and I stepped forward, ready to defend my family. Me, take one step towards us and I'll make sure not only you lose this job, but you're also blacklisted from working any security guard job in this town. Security guard, you sister screwer. And yep, this is an actual insult in Hindi. Because of you, the culture of this country is going downhill. You and your filthy brothers come and dirty our lands as if everything is your property, and now you think you can threaten me. The security guard was not done. He began to hurl racist insults at us, calling us filthy Pakistanis, pigs and whatnot. His words started attracting attention, and soon people were looking over at us in interest as if we were some kind of circus show and not people being humiliated publicly. The security guard then had the audacity to call the police, all the while making sure I could not leave. But I knew what will happen, so I waited with my family standing behind me. The police arrived quickly and the security guard tried to paint me as a terrorist who was fighting with him. He continued to make elaborate stories about how I was threatening him and making the environment unsafe and whatnot. Seeing the police gathered, the manager finally walked out of his room. Because of the crowd, he did not immediately spot me and instead started talking to the security guard, who told him how a Pakistani old man, derogatory, was annoying him. The manager, instead of scolding him for his words and making sure his patrons felt safe, just laughed along with the security guard and told the police that this was some general nuisance that happens once in a while. Me? Really now? This happens once in a while? I would have enjoyed the way the manager's face turned grey as ash, but I was too busy fuming in anger. The security guard, not noticing his boss's condition, stepped towards me and went to yank at my arms, but the police quickly got between us and pushed the security guard back. The head inspector also recognized me, as I had made quite a few trips to the station for documentation and such. Manager: sorry sir, he is new here and he does not know you. I apologize for all the inconvenience he caused you, sir. Should I get you and the madam some tea or coffee? Me, you wanna get us some tea after humiliating my family and spitting on my wife? You wanna give me respect after you hired a racist prick like him who insults people like me? Manager: Sir, I apologize on his behalf. I will fire him right now. Me? You will fire him? What do you think I did? Not hear you encouraging his actions and being as racist and bigoted like him? You both will get out of my park right now, and I don't want to see you even near this place again. The manager and security guard tried to beg me, but I asked the police to throw them both out. Inspector, sorry you had to go through all that, sir. Is there anything I can do for you regarding this? Me, let me know about some good security guards when you find one. The police assured me they were patrolling around to make us feel safe and secure, but the damage had already been done. Our day at the theme park was ruined, and my family and I left feeling humiliated and violated. We had been discriminated against simply because of our accent and appearance, and it was a harsh reminder that racism and discrimination still exists in society. Of course, I then made sure to hire new people and keep a keen eye on the working on my park so no one else has to go through what I did. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I really feel bad for OP in this story and his family. They just wanted a nice day in their theme park, and they did not deserve to get treated like this. Anyway, if you enjoyed the story, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even post a comment if you want to support me. The next one is titled Neighbor Gets Towed. A few days ago, I came home from work and saw my neighbor Lindsay's car on my driveway. I was confused and I asked her very nicely to move her car, and then she did. The day after that, my husband came home from work before I did, and he saw Lindsay's car in our driveway again. He asked her to move the car and told her that she cannot do that anymore because it's not her house. He said he was polite about it and she apologized and moved her car. The day after that, I saw Lindsay's car parked again on my driveway after I got home from my doctor's appointment and my husband was working. I decided to ask her what's going on. Her, what do you mean? Me, you keep on parking your car in our driveway after we have asked you nicely not to do that. Why do you keep doing it? Her, I have a big camper parked on my driveway and it takes up a lot of space. There is not enough space to park my car. Me, okay, you need to figure something out then, because you cannot park your car on our driveway anymore. It's rude and you've already been told to stop. If you do it one more time, I will have your car towed. She apologized to me and promised it would not happen again. Last night, my husband and I went out for dinner. When we got back home, we saw Lindsay's car parked on our driveway. I told my husband, that was it, enough is enough. I'm gonna tow her car because she has been warned. We have tried asking her nicely and she doesn't want to listen to us. My husband agreed with me and I towed her car right away. I also stuck her with the bill because it's her own fault. Now she is calling me an a-hole and she is pissed at me. Edit, she left a note in my mailbox. She called me a drama queen and she wants to be repaid for the tow bill because it was my idea to tow her car instead of acting like an adult and asking her to move it. If I don't repay her, she will park her car in my driveway again because I am being petty. Yeah, sure, I will tow her car again. Seriously, I dare her. Update, Lindsay parked her car on our driveway again. I was not home, but my husband was, and he got her car towed an hour away. She left a nasty note in my mailbox again though. It read, "You guys owe me a lot of money for towing fees. I will continue to park on your driveway until you sell your house and move." I told her if she wants us to move so badly, then she is obligated to buy us a new house. She refused to buy us a new house and she doesn't think we can force her. I told Lindsay if she doesn't want to buy us a new house, then I have no choice but to file a police report and the cops will see the witchy notes. And now she is fuming. Update number 2, she trespassed again and I called the cops on her. Her car got towed immediately and she was arrested. Comment number 1, not the a-hole, clearly. 3 warnings not to do it, last one a clear final warning, do it again and you get towed, and she did it again and she got towed. Unless someone else is parking her car there for her and not telling her, this is all on her, and even if that's the case, none of it is on you. Comment number 2, not the a-hole. In a lot of places, you're not supposed to leave a camper parked in the driveway for several days in a row. Look up your city codes. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I think you would have to be crazy to call OP the a-hole in this case, because yes, he warned the neighbor multiple times and the neighbor is just incredibly entitled and thinks that she can do whatever she wants, including trespassing on OP's property. Let me know if you agree with me on this, that OP is definitely 100% not the a-hole. The next one is titled Traveling Malicious Compliance. A recent post reminded me of a similar story of when I worked at an airport. Travelers with special needs are given special treatment by airline and airport staff. You can, for example, request a wheelchair for the long distances to get to and from the gate, and long queues at passport control, and if you're in a wheelchair you will need help getting your luggage off the carousel, onto a trolley through customs and out to the public greeting area. In my country, arriving aircraft will call through before landing with numbers of passengers requiring assistance, and staff will be waiting at the door with wheelchairs for them. Of course, amongst the people with genuine needs lurk the entitled ones, but this is not a rant about them in general. This is about a day when I got pissed off. I collected this woman at the aircraft door, helped her into a wheelchair, pushed her uphill and down the hundreds of meters to passport control. I bypassed the queues for passport checks, we had our own staff lane, and then over to the baggage carousels. Got a trolley, waited beside the wheelchair, chatting politely. She pointed out her bags, typical US 70-pound monster suitcases, and I, all of 120 pounds, struggled them off the carousel and onto the trolley. We are doing fine. It's just my job, the same as I had done multiple times a day for years, but then she pissed me off. She tried to get out of the wheelchair. I'm okay by myself from here. I can walk now. I would be so embarrassed for my friends to see me in a wheelchair. It's just that I got swollen ankles from flying. Internal thoughts: you flat out lied just to get someone else to lift your overweight bags to queue jump and to get a free ride. I'm sorry ma'am, but as you requested wheelchair assistance, I am bound by duty of care to provide this service to you fully. You'll need to stay in the wheelchair until I can transfer you to the care of your friends and family outside. I called a colleague to push the baggage trolley and kept that wheelchair moving through custom checks. And then out the door to where her family and friends were able to watch her arrive in a wheelchair. I hope she was truly embarrassed, explaining to her family and friends just how lazy and entitled she actually was. And the next one is titled Stupid HR Malicious Compliance. So here's a story from a while ago with malicious compliance on the part of my manager. It was just after 2000, and as I was working in IT, there had been a busy year leading up to the millennium. Now everyone was looking to get back to normal. The company had other plans for us though, and decided to make a third of the IT staff redundant. In my team of 12, this meant 4 of us. This was not really a problem, as even though I had just moved into IT a few years earlier, the job market was booming and getting a new job would be easy. So this HR move was a bit of a surprise, as we were very busy. Lots of the routine projects had been put on hold, so lots of catching up, but whatever, they knew best. Redundancy with this company offered a month's salary per year of service, which is way over the legal minimum. They were offering for me a year's salary tax-free, mostly, to find a better paying job elsewhere. An offer that would be hard to say no to, but unfortunately they were not gonna ask. The way redundancy works for this company in the UK is that all the occupants of the role are ranked by very carefully selected criteria, and the lowest ranked are goners. The way the criteria are selected are to make them very subjective and capable of withstanding any legal challenge that might lead to an industrial tribunal. And well, if there was one thing HR hated above all, it was legal hassles. Criteria would be things like expected to be able to contribute well in other divisions of the company and other such evidence-free bollocks. Why this weird approach from HR? It's not as daft as it may appear though. When trying to reduce headcount, the options in the UK are natural wastage, offering early retirement, offering voluntary redundancy, or having compulsory redundancies. In a team role in IT at this time, what tends to happen is that nobody is old enough to retire, and offering early retirement was actually expensive as it was based on a generous company policy. Offering voluntary redundancy means the deadwood stays. Forcing a selection process stops the good people leaving, no redundancy money, and allows getting rid of the poor performers. Or at least that was the plan. Anyway, my manager had been told he was being made redundant, which was a bit of a tactical error. He was not really adhering to the company line as strictly as he might have been had the circumstances been different. He gathered us together and asked who wanted to go. 4 of us, me included, volunteered, so all was good and everyone in the team was happy. My manager, maliciously complying with the ranking exercise, dully ranked us by the contrived criteria but interpreted to our ends and not the companies. These rankings were passed to HR, processes were run, runes screwed, oracles consulted, and ultimately decisions made. Lo and behold, the Gang of Four came bottom of the pack. Because of the extremely subjective nature of the criteria, nobody could prove the rankings were wrong. My manager then let the team know who was staying and who was going, as was right and proper, and we each got "bye bye loser" or "you're still on board" letters from HR. That was not the end of it though. My HR somehow twigged that they were being stitched up by my manager. Comparing the people leaving with the people with the highest annual appraisal scores was an exact fit. HR went into recovery mode and tried briefly to revoke the redundancies. This would have been totally legal except for one thing. It had been announced that we were the bottom of the selection criteria. Continued employment would have been unthinkable as we were declared least competent to do the job and they still wanted to get rid of 1/3. If they had insisted, this would have been potentially constructive dismissal, either for the Gang of Four in a weird backwards way. This is when the employer makes life untenable for the employee, such as saying that you are rubbish at your job and they want to get rid of you. Or if another 4 were selected and then obviously the process was flawed and they claim unfair dismissal, aka company not complying with own processes. Considering the entire rigmarole, particularly the selection criteria ruse, was designed to avoid legal hassles, they were painted into a corner and had to let the 4 of us go. So thanks Dave for playing the system so well to get the outcome the employees and not HR wanted. Epilogue to the story: it was, as expected, easy to get a new job in those halcyon days. I had decided to take 3 months off, but a really attractive role came up and I started 5 weeks later and have been there ever since. Epilogue 2, eventually talking to my friends who stayed. This round of redundancies was, as I sort of suspected, the precursor to eventual outsourcing. This was very much in vogue back then. And then about 2 to 3 years later, the overly slimmed down organization was transferred, called TUPE in the UK, Transfer of Undertaking Protection of Employment, to an outsourcer. A bullet was dodged there. TUPE means you transfer on your current pay and conditions and you will rot with that salary, etc. until it is worse than your new employer's standard T&Cs. Meaning no pay rises, bonuses, increased holiday entitlement, nothing. This obviously also ends in another "the dead would stay" situation, as anyone who can get another job will as soon as the market moves past them. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I would love to hear from you. Have you ever gotten in any malicious compliance situation at your own workplace? If you did, please let me know in the comments because I would love to hear your story. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance and I hope to see you again tomorrow.